Hey guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Nogwanda, and if you're looking for a beginner friendly CRUD app using Ionic 7 as well as Angular and Firebase, then this is a tutorial for you. We are going to be using Firebase for this tutorial to do a CRUD app, which was journal entry app, which I found it was very much easier for you to understand and incorporate all the new techniques and things that you need to understand using Firebase as well with Angular Ionic. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet in my channel. And for disclaimer, I have a video where I show you how to add your Firebase. Check it out and come back to this one. Now let's take a quick recap on our project. So we head home, and that's just a default class, and then we got pages where we had the landing page, the login, results, and sign up. And then we created a service page which has all the methods that are communicating with our backend, which is register, login, research, sign out, and get profile. Now let's go to the login. I've changed some few things, like this few lines here. This line, this is still the same thing, but then it's just this error messages are styled now. As you can see, they're red and they are aligned properly. Last time they were just black and they were just a long text because of the time and recording, but now it's just added this same things. No, nothing changed. Same ng if statements if it's required, if it has the same pattern as we have, and I've added the style for the error input, which has the red color thing, so that it just shows really nice and proper. Now let's go back to our authentication class, save us, so that we can fix the way we call our user. However, before you get started, make sure that you have your Firebase open. So I've opened my console. I'm running my Ionic on Ionic serve here. It's running on the server here, and also for reference, I'm gonna be using the Ionic official page, which is the Ionic framework for references. Right, so I only have one user not logged in, one user that I've registered. Now let's go back here, and I'm gonna sign in and have my user logged in. Okay, so this navigates to the home page, and our home page basically has nothing. It has just this for the sign out, as I was demoing the sign out, and just this lines here which were there by default. Now we're gonna do, because we're gonna do a journal app, we are going to add the journal list component as well as the view component of the journal. Before that, let's just fix the way we call our user so that it does not give us a problem as we go. Now we will be adding our users using the user ID, so that every journal record belongs to a certain user. In that case, we don't just add journals to all the users record. Okay, now let's go to our authentication service class, which is this one. Underneath the get profile, I'm going to change this. I'm going to remove this part, and now we are going to return a new promise, and it's from type user. It should return user or null. Now this user, it should be from the Firebase user, so user/auth. So I don't have it here. I'm gonna import it, so I'm going to say import user, capital letter, right, from at Firebase, from Firebase /auth. Okay, remove unused. Okay, so now I'm gonna use it here. It should be that user. Okay, now our promise, it uses user and should return a user from the Firebase. So I'm gonna call this dot auth. Okay, there's something wrong. Okay, so a new promise, it returns either resolve or reject. Oopsie. So every time you say new promise, this could be the type of the what it should bring back, but then there's resolve and reject. Resolve is when it returns the correct stuff, and reject to say if there's nothing what it should return, which will be a null. So here I'm gonna say this dot our ng auth dot. So ng auth has many things inside, so we're gonna look out for the on change. Okay, I'm not seeing it on auth state change there. Say return something here, put it on the user, and let's say if you have returned something and place it on this user, resolve with that user thing you've returned, otherwise return resolve null. Okay, otherwise just reject. Right, so I'm gonna save this. So it's going to complain about let's see, error, cannot find module DNA. So I think I've imported this by mistake. Okay, so this is our user, get user, modified get user. So when I go back to whatever, when I call get user, it should return the user that is currently logged in. So this has refreshed, so even if this refreshes, it still has that auth state of the user. Right, now let's get down to our journal. So we're gonna create a journal. So I'm gonna create a new terminal. We're gonna have a savers, just like we had for authentication, for a journal. So I'm going to call ng generate a savers. So I'm going to put it underneath my savers, underneath a savers folder. I should also move this to that savers folder so that it just be, the code can be nice. Okay, so I'm going to call this a journal service, and it will do magic for us. There you go, we have this. Now we are working on a blank canvas. So we're gonna have the, you know, the usual adding, editing, creating, editing, deleting methods right under here, which will be communicating with the Firebase. And then we're going to create a component that will interact that so that it just shows up in our UI. Okay, now let's go to the journal service. The first thing that I want to do is get the user ID. In that case, I'm able to assign the correct journal to the correct user. Now on top here, I'm going to declare user ID to any, so I can use it somewhere else inside my project. Okay, so I'm gonna call in a provider for our auth service from auth, what did I call it, auth service there. Okay, this dot auth service dot get user, get profile rather. Now it is, because it's a promise, we need to use then, and here it will put what it responds with, and here we are going to say now this user ID that we declare here in our class, please put whatever this method returned dot UID. So if you see, because it's from an instant of user, when I do this, it will give you if you want to have a display or email verified, whatever is underneath the user from Firebase. Now we're going to say UID, and we are going to log. I like to log everything to just see if we are going the right way or we just heading south. And we don't want to head south and figure out later as we move that, hey, we're in south now. Okay, so we have our user ID here. Okay, we're gonna display that later when I create the component for the channels. Now there are a few things that I would add and show you how to add the Firestore. Oh, by the way, we are going to be using the Firebase Firestore. Let's look at our Firebase Firestore. So we have this here, Firestore database. So there are other there's another database, it's real-time database, still the database is the Firestore, but depending on your project, you might just choose which one you want to use. So we are using the Cloud Firestore rather. So to do that, this will be very important because sometimes you might get errors and you don't know what to search for. So our app model, we have to put everything that we are going to be using. So we are going to be using the Firestore provider. We need to put it underneath our imports and the provider. Okay, so we have Angular Fire, Angular Auth model, and we initialize the Angular Fire model with our Firebase. Let me do that here and here so it could be neat and you can see what I'm doing. So I am going to add now, when I say provide Fire app, oh, what am I typing? So I'm gonna say provide Firebase app, like that. So you see when I click there, it just gave me this one, which is from Angular and then Fire, then app. Make sure that you are using the correct provider. There are different providers for Firebase SDKs rather. There's a Firebase straight and there's an Angular Firebase. So it's called Angular Fire, which is what we're going to be using throughout this project. Okay. So here I'm going to say same thing as we did with the other the Angular Fire model. Initialize app from our environment and our Firebase configuration that we have here. Also, I am going to have the provider for the Firestore. So I'm going to say provide Firestore. Okay, it's giving me errors, so there's definitely something that I'm not doing correct. So I'm gonna say get Firestore. Okay, I don't know why it does not autocomplete. I get worried when things are not auto-completing. It means that there is something we are missing. Let me take a look. Invalid position engine model import. Okay, let me import it, and we're gonna have get Firestore. And I'm gonna have provide Firestore. Okay, they are from at Angular Firestore slash fire slash Firestore. Okay, so we have get Firestore. Great. So we added those two things here, this and that one. Make sure you're using the correct ones here, as it might give you errors as you run your projects. Okay, for now we are going to create our journal page and to generate a page. I'm gonna put it under the pages folder. I'm gonna call this journals. Okay, so it is empty at the current moment, and then we are going to say now inside our journals, let's call our user just to check if it still gets the correct instead of our user. Okay, so I'm gonna call my user here and display the user ID. So I will, before using the auth, I will have to provide the provider for our auth service from auth service. Okay, I'm gonna call my user here, auth service.getProfile. Now my profile is returning a promise, therefore we need to say then, okay, whatever it returns, it will return it inside here. So now just declare our user ID that we're going to be using here. To type any. Now we're going to say this user ID is equal to the user that is being returned. What we need is the UI. It's called UID. I'm going to log my user ID just to check if it will return the correct stuff. Now our app, it navigates from login to a home page. Now we need to modify that. Where do we navigate? Yeah, so we need to navigate it to call in the journal component. So journals. Let's run it. Log in. Password is wrong. Okay, now you see this is a user ID that I've logged here. Not here. Yeah, rather. Now it does not move to home page, it moves to the journal. So this is the user ID. If this shows, it means you're in a good place. So this user ID is this one here. So this user ID identify this logged user. So if there's a different user, it will show a different user's ID. So everything is fine. Alright, now that we have our user here, let's get started with the service class for adding our user's journal. Now I'm gonna have a method here called add journal. We want to add a journal class, well, model class. If you know model class, to just have all the instance of a what do you call this, of something that you want to use. So I'm gonna create my model class right on top. Otherwise you can create it in a separate page, but as long as it's outside this, it will work fine, perfectly fine right here. So I'm gonna have a class for my journal so that it has everything that I want to have. So we're gonna have an ID. So I would want to have my ID to be optional because the ID of a journal will auto generated by the Firestore. And then we are going to add a user ID so that we know whose journal does this belong to. So we're gonna have a title, which is a type string, and we would want to have the content the user just puts in that journal. And then we're gonna have a date, so I'm gonna call the date created at, and this one will be any, make it a date, but I'm just gonna leave it to any. So here I'm gonna have the constructor for this, user ID string, title string, content string, created at, so I'm gonna say this dot user ID is equals to user ID, this title is equals to title, okay. Now this will have to, so when you add a new entry of a journal, it needs to have this stuff in it. So here I am going to have a parameter of a journal of type journal. So when we call this, we need to pass in that journal, which a user should provide all of this. This makes sure that we have all the entries correct every time a user enters the journal and creates a journal. Okay, so for journal, for the user ID, first we need to get a user ID. So I'm gonna say this user ID will be equals to this dot user ID. Now this user ID is the one we declared here, which gets the value from this. So when this runs, it will start here, gets the user ID that is logged in, put it here so that we can use it anywhere, which is this one. So our journal from the other side will not come with the user ID, hence we have to provide it here. Okay, now from getting our user ID, we need to have a reference. We are gonna use a collection. So a collection is this. So this, it has the collection. So a collection will be an entry. So now we're going to create a collection for this so that it knows where to put our journals. So to have that, we need to have first a reference. I'm going to call this a journal ref. I'm going to call collection. Now look at this. Now when I say collection, make sure it's from Angular, Fire, and Firestore here and nowhere else. So if I click on this one, it will import it for me here. There. Otherwise, if you don't have autocomplete, please import it like this there. So let's see what our collection have. So our collection, we are going to say put it under Firestore. We don't have Firestore. I did not provide a provider for Firestore. So on our constructor here, I'm going to add Firestore and put a import for it here. There on top, Firestore. I'm gonna call it Firestore. It's from Firestore, which is from Angular Fire, Firestore. When I click on this one, okay, it's unused. So it's this one here on top. So now I'm gonna call it. So this dot Firestore. So we are saying please use Firestore, and create a collection, and the collection should be of name journals, and this will create a collection for us. I missed that part here. Okay, get journals, not add journals. Okay, so now we're gonna we're gonna return add doc. Now there's add doc from Firebase Firestore, but we are using the Angular Firebase. Make sure you use the correct one. So it needs a journal, it needs a reference of the collection we want to add this document to, and it needs also what we are going to put in. So we're going to put a journal. So this journal will be from the user, this journal entry will be from the user, and this reference is this one saying it should be from the Firestore in the collection called journals. I'm going to show you as we add how it actually does the magic here. Okay, so now we are done with the adding the journal from our Firebase. We need to now connect it to the user's point of point of view. Yeah. Okay, to do that, first I'm going to create an HTML for our users display. So here I will have the title that the user will type. So if it's of type string, we're gonna have a content for it. Content should provide a string for it, and we are going to auto do the date. So we just need this 3, and then the date I will show you how to create it as the user enters the relevant stuff there. Now I'm gonna go to Firebase framework component here, because I want to use a model for adding the users. When the user adds something, I want to use a model, this one. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly copy something like this here. So when you just have to pop this up, and then the user can enter the title and enter the content and confirm, and it closes. So I'm just going to use same thing as this guy have here. So for me, we need to just copy from here the Ionic model. So I'm going to copy this part here. This will be the pop-up when the user adds something. Okay, need to find my HTML. I put it here. So there's on dismiss, there's confirm, there's cancel. This says what should happen if a user clicks cancel, and what should happen when the user clicks on confirm. Now I'm gonna go here and just copy what they have here. First I'm gonna have this. Let me save this part. I'm gonna have, let me just close this as well. Okay. Okay. And then on our HTML, they have cancel, it will dismiss this model. Confirm, it should also dismiss. And on dismiss, actually we don't actually need this, because this just says what should happen when it dismisses. So for this instant, they say this message should have whatever the user typed in, so we don't need on will dismiss. I'm just going to remove it and have the confirm and cancel. I'm going to comment this out, I won't need it. Okay, so we have our model. Before I show you how it works, now it says it triggers when a person calls open model. Now I'm gonna have a button. I'm gonna have a button for adding when a user clicks on add. I'm gonna have an iron fab. Let me quickly copy an iron fab so it could be quick, because we've been using the floating button throughout. I'm gonna still use it even here. So this button, I'm gonna make it communicate with our add to open this. So this needs an ID which it should communicate with which button, and we want it to communicate with this button, hence I'm putting ID open here. And let's see how it looks like before we just go further. We don't want to go further at the point where we're just going nowhere. Okay, so we see now when I click on this, it shows this. Okay, let me put this into a nice bottom session. Okay, fixed vertical. I'm gonna have it on bottom, and horizontal I want to have it on center. Okay, let's save. Okay, so it's done there. Great. Now we're gonna change this input here. So we're gonna have two inputs in our side. We're gonna have one for the title. So this one should be a title. And for my content, because an input is very small, I want it to be the content to be like big text area here. So I'm gonna use text area. Should be down here. Okay, there should be a text area somewhere. Probably, yeah, they need the input. Did I miss it? Okay, just gonna copy text area here for our content. Now if you add, it has the text area, it has the title. I'm gonna quickly style it, quickly style it so it just looks very nice. Let's start with our input. To remove this label here and put label title and label place order stack type text placement hold. To remove this, I'm gonna come to the ng model now. So ng model, it should be our ng model, it should be saying title, this title, so that it connects with this input. So I'm gonna call title from this side, and okay, on our text area, let me also do this. First, I don't like the line underneath there, so I'm going to remove to none. Also, because it limits the lines, the height, so I'm going to create a new height for this text area. So I'm going to say text content, and then go to my CSS, have a class for text content. Under my text content, I would have a height to, let's see, give it to 40, save. Also for our content here, I'm gonna call ng model, so I'm gonna concatenate to a, not concatenate, model what did we call it? Content. Okay, so when you type in the text area, it will go in our this two things, so we connect them with the ng models. Okay, now we are having the save and the console. So for, let's see how it looks first though. Okay, now it's bigger. I don't like that regular texting label. There we go. And our title, and then a user will just type in anything they want. So there's confirm and cancel. We need to say now whatever they enter here, we need to put it under, connected underneath our add service. Where did we add journal? So we need to pass this. Okay, let me show you how to do that. First we need to say when a user clicks on confirm, first let me just say add journal. When a user clicks on confirm, call this. Now we need to call the add journal that we were creating on a service and then put the data that the user have entered. To do that, I will first inject the service here. Call it journal service, which is from our journal service. So we're gonna say this dot journal service dot add journal. So it needs a type of journal. Type journal has a title, all of those, remember, stuff we declared on the journal model. Okay, so I'm gonna do this braces and say for user ID I am going to leave it blank for now, because remember on the other side we have declared it here. And secondly, we are going to have the title, so it needs a title. For the title that the user have entered is this, the title. Okay, you need to first say, now I'm providing title, so this the title. The next part is the content, and we're gonna give it this user's content. And then the last part is the date. So for the date, we called it created at, and the time, the exact time the user will be clicking and calling this method will be provided by this new date. Okay, so because this is a promise, and you know with a promise we can use then to manage what happens after that. Here I'm going to say if everything went well, I need to show a toast that will say journal edit successful. So I'm gonna inject a toast from Angular. We need a toast control from toast controller. I'll miss the brackets here. Let's just expand this. Okay, so I'm gonna say const to declare a toast is equal to this dot toast control dot create. So it needs a message let's say the message journal edit successful, and this toast can show, let's say 2000 seconds. Okay, because of the await here, we need to make this whole method a async. So there's my async there, it added for me. Okay, so after this, when I say this toast dot present, okay, now things can go wrong. We need to also cater for when times are not doing the things that should be doing. Let's say const host show another toast, but the message should have this error message that it will send here. Duration still 2000, and then we're gonna present again. Fingers crossed. Let's see if this works. Let me put this aside here so we could see. Now let's see. Now if I say I'm writing a journal about Ionic, let me just copy some random text, put it here and say confirm. It says edit journal successful. Oh, we've missed this part, so it's not showing. Let me refresh. If you get that message, it means it went well. So see, now we have an entry of journals. This is a doc ID for this entry. We have our content created on. This is the time stamp, and then the title, and then the user, which user it belongs to. So if we add another one, if I could add another one here, say Ionic 7 tutorial, and add again. Says journal edit successful. As you see here, it added another one with a different title here, and the timestamp actually has the time to it, which is different from this one, but here it just shows the date here. So now we know that it adds well. We just need to say, if you're done adding, please close this model, and yeah, let's close that model here. Now remember, the model to dismiss, it dismisses this whole thing here, this whole model top adding thing. We are going to call it, and first, because on cancel, if you can see cancel, it shows here, no cancel, it shows here, and also on this one it should also show on when it calls the confirm. Remember, when you press confirm, it calls confirm. Now we are just going to uncomment this and remove this because you don't need it. So if I save it, and now I add my journal, a new one, say new journal, type something, and I click confirm. See, it went down there and it says edit successful, and it closed. Yes, so that's how you add. Now we are going to go to the next part, which is displaying back our journals here. So I'm going to use this page to display back our journals and see if it works. Now let's start with displaying the journal. I'm going to create a get journals underneath my service file, and underneath there it will have to go to the Firestore and collect everything that is in a specific user. So we will need a user ID. I'm gonna say of type any for now, and then it also needs a journal, a reference. So I'm gonna call this journal ref, and our journal ref will say go to collection, and inside Firestore I want to communicate with the journals collection. Remember, it needs to be exactly the same collection name here when you call it here. Okay, and then now we are going to do what we call queries. Queries is when you say which part, like when SQL we have where, select this class where, ID, user ID is equal to this. Firebase also have that, so I'm gonna show you how to do it. So I'm gonna call this ref query is equal to, we have something called query, right? Now query, we find a lot of them, but then we're gonna use the one from Angular Firestore query. So query, it shows you what it does there and what it needs. So it first needs a reference which we want to collect from, and we're gonna say where. So also where here, it's from Angular Fire. So as I click on this where, it imports it here. So make sure that if it doesn't auto import for you, you make sure that you put it here. So if you use Firestore, add dog collection query and where. Now where, we're gonna say where, so it needs the field path as a string, and the string that we want would be where user ID. Now this should be any field here, the field path, any field here. So we're gonna say on this user ID. Now let me go here where user ID, comma, another string, equals to. So we have equals to, or less, or equals to, all the expression you can think of. So we need to be, it should be exactly like this user ID, and then your query is done. So now we're gonna return collection, it's called collection data from Angular Firestore. It has imported for me there. So in the collection data, it needs the query. So we're gonna put our reference query here. Say this is the query, and then here we will say field, and then ID field. This is optional, but then we need to make sure that we have this ID field. So this should be an observable. So I'm gonna say as observable. So observable is from the RSJS. It gives me error because this returns an observable and our method is not an observable. So what we can do is, let me see if it can also complete for me. Okay, it doesn't want to, so I'm gonna say from here, this is an observable method which returns a journal array because it's more than one journal. So observable of a journal array, close it, and we're done. So it should collect this ref, all the journals inside this user's collections. So I'm gonna save this, and we are going to go back into our journal HTML first here, and say in here it needs to expect an array of journals. Remember, array of journals because a user can have one or more journals of type journal. It will be an array. It will start as an empty array at the beginning. We need to say, whenever someone enters this page, please make sure that you call the journals that are available, otherwise it will be empty if they are not called. So on init, remember this is the first method that it's been called. We get our user here and stuff, so we need to say after getting a user, please get the user's journal right after this. So we're gonna say dot journal service dot get journals. Okay, I need to spell this as journals and say get journals. Now this get journal is an observable and it requires a user ID. So this user ID that we have here, we're gonna pass it here. So as a observable, we subscribe, and this will be our results. And our results, we want to populate this at the journals array that we just declared on top there. We're going to put with the results that we get in this method. Okay, so I'm going to log, of course I'm going to log my journals to make sure that it actually gives us the correct stuff. All right, let's save and see if it will get our journals. See, it has 3 entries back, so this is what it returned. I've populated this array here, and I've logged it. So if you could see, it returns everything that is on our database. 3 entries there. So 1, 2, 3. Now we want to display all of this here. So to do that, now that we have our journals, we can go to HTML and use ng4 to show our stuff. So here there's a model, we're not going to use it. We're going to go on top, right here on top, and I'm going to use a card to display it. So I'm going to go on my framework so I can quickly copy iron card. So iron card, just a basic card. You're going to create it, just basic card like this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this guy, paste it here. So if I save this, it will show only one card with that default data that you see. There we go. So first what I'm gonna do is because I wanted to show side by side, I'm gonna use Ionic read, and I'll quickly type it, but it's somewhere here. It's Ionic read. I'm gonna quickly type it. Let me type it here, and then I'm gonna copy this card thing back. So for Ionic read, and then I'm gonna have an iron rows. So inside a row you need an iron column. Okay, so a column is the one that will have the data. Let me go back and copy my card, paste it here. Right, so this will have to repeat for the number of times the journal, the number of entries of the journal. First I'm gonna resize this, so I'm gonna size the large part should be like 4, size medium should take about 4, and then size small takes 6. Okay, because I wanted to go side by side instead of a long thing, a long card. Failed to execute. Let me go straight to journals. Okay, so we have the card here. This was just to resize our card. Now to get our data, we're gonna use ng4. So you're gonna say asterisk ng4. Remember we have the journals on the other side as an array. So I'm gonna start calling journal of this array journals. Okay, So this should repeat 3 times because I'm saying this should iterate 3 through all the journals. Here, as you can see, it has 3 of this. Now to populate the actual data of each, I am going to go here for the title. I am going to say this journal, each journal. So this is each journal of the journals. Inside this journal, you will have the title. And do you need subtitle? Okay, subtitle, we're going to add the time. So I'm going to remove it for now, the date. And here I'm going to say for the content, have the journal content. I'm going to save this. So you see now it has the content that we have for all of those entries that we have displaying nicely there. Okay, so now we've seen how to get our data back, the data that we've added, and we're able to get the data back. Now the other part is to get each information of the data. So when you click on this card, it should show only for this one. When I have another model here, but I wanted to come from the bottom. So that's the next part that we're going to be doing just now. Now before that, remember, let me add another one. Confirm. So you see it adds, and you see our arrays just went to 4. Now I also want this to be from the bottom here because this is very long and it just doesn't look cute for me. So I'm gonna have this as a model. Say, hey, can you please be a model? And your initial breakpoint is, where do you start? I want you to start from 0.25, and your break points should be 0.025 to 0.5, 0.75. So you see, it just comes from there. Those breakpoints are the same. Where should it start? Where should it end? Now that we're done with adding our journals and also displaying them back, we need to have a method that will make us view each journal, and also that page should have the editing and also the delete buttons for those 2 methods. Now let's get started with the journal for each page. So I'm going to start by creating a journal. So I'm going to say ng generate page. It should be under the pages. This will be for the journal. So not journals. Now the journal shows the list and adding stuff. Now the journal will show only the journal that has been selected. Yeah, so let me just create that. This is a page for us. Now here I need to say have a method that will open our page there. This page will be a model as well. So I'm going to have an open journal method here. So now I'm gonna use model. So the 2 type of ways you can do a model. You can do a model like this, or you can just have your own page as a model. So I'm going to use this page that I created here as a model. Now to do that, I will have to provide and inject the model controller. So model controller is from Angular Ionic. Okay, so here I'm gonna I'm going to declare just a model. Let me call that on top here so it does not confuse. I'm going to call this model controller. Is equal to await the start model control dot create. So the component it should use a journal page, and the component props we want to pass in the journal ID, because when you select one you need to know from which ID of the document it belongs to. So I'm gonna pass in the ID, and the ID will be from the journal that is selected, of type journal. So I'm gonna say the journal that will be passed.id. And then we're gonna also add a breakpoint for it so that it just shows in the middle, from the middle of our page. Let me just give it 0.5, and the tallest it should be on 0.8. Okay, because of our weight we need to have a sync. And let's say our initial breakpoint, it should be just start from 6% of it. So, and here I'm gonna call this model to show present. Okay, this one should be called when each of the card has been clicked. So I'm gonna go back to journals page HTML and say when this card is clicked, what should happen? Call click and call this method for me. Let me save. And because it passes an ID on our journal page.ts, we are going to have an input here like that. Input saying you should expect an input, which is an ID of type string. And also, okay, cool, let's see if this works. So now when I click on this one, cannot read property of ID of undefined. Okay, this ID is undefined. Okay, so this journal is undefined because on our HTML, our method here, it expects us to pass a journal that is selected, and the journal that is selected at this time will be journal for each. So I'm going to save this and see if it's still going to give us an error. There we go, so no errors. Now you see, now it populates. When I click on each, it opens a journal, and journal HTML for now it's empty, as you can see, it just says journal. Okay, now let's go back to before we display anything. We need to go to our journal service, and our journal service we're gonna say, hey, listen, I will be requesting a journal by an ID. Now I'm going to say get journal by ID, and you will expect an ID. Type any. Okay, so I'm gonna say const, almost same thing as the journal, getting the collection, the whole collection. Now in this one we're getting a document which is under a collection, so I'm gonna have a journal reference and say now not on collection, just go on doc, and doc from Angular Fire, and then doc I'm gonna say this dot Firestore collect from the collection journals. Now I'm gonna use this slash thing and say journals, and use a $sign to say journals slash which ID, this ID. Now we just said from the journals slash this any ID that will be passed, so it could give us back the correct row here. Okay, this is change file to journal. Okay, so after this we say return doc data from Angular Fire. Now see the difference here, we were collecting the whole collection, and here we're collecting only the doc, and it returns collection data. Here it returns a doc data, and a doc data requires a reference, and our reference, we're saying reference, just go to this row in Firestore, underneath journals, underneath this ID that the user will be passing, which is the card that the user will be pressing at the time of the journal they want to request from. And then when I save this, this should return a journal observable. So what I'm gonna do again here, I'm gonna add a field data, ID field rather, of ID. So this should return it as an observable of type journal. Okay, so now I'm gonna say this method returns an observable of type journal, and I'm gonna save this. So on our journal, I'm gonna call that method here. Remember, this ID will be from the clicked here, and then they pass it to this model, which is this class, and then it will populate that thing. So now I'm gonna say, let me first put the journal service so we could use it here. I'm gonna call the method which is we just created on our service. Let's dot journal service dot get journal by ID, and I'm gonna pass the ID here, this ID. Okay, sometimes I just don't want things to be underneath my constructor, because sometimes it does not execute first, but in edit will definitely execute as the page has been entered. Okay, so before that, make sure that your ID, I'm gonna log this ID to make sure that it has value. Otherwise, sometimes you just go through some errors and you find that you didn't pass ID correctly. So I'm gonna say let me see the ID. Now let me see if it will give me the correct ID as I press this different IDs. So let me press this one, it gives me this P, the last one. So if I press the first one, it will give me the first one, meaning our ID is working well. And if we call this and pass the ID, it will give us the correct data back. Okay, now what do we do with the data that has been sent back? Let's press subscribe, and the results will be here. And then we're gonna say, because this returns a journal type, we're gonna say we declare a journal that is empty here of type journal, and here this journal will be equal to the results back. Now our journal, this journal will have the data that has been returned from the Firebase. Now what do we want to do now with the data that we have in this page is to display it. So I'm going to go to the journal.html and say let's have I'm going to have it just a container here, and I'm going to make sure first that it has this data. So I'm going to say ng if, otherwise it will just have errors sometimes if the journal is not even there or there's something being called wrong. Okay, so I'm gonna just have an iron item. Underneath our iron item, I'm gonna have an iron input. The reason why I'm using an input is because we might change the title. This input will have our title here, so I'm gonna say label is equal to title. Now to get the value of a title, I'm going to say journal from the other side dot title. No, not like this, because it's an input. You can't do that. You need to bind it with the value that we have on the other side. And the value that we have on the other side, we have just journal, but in the side journal we just want title. I'm gonna save this, and I'm gonna do the same with what we had on our text area, the other side. For our content, basically the same thing. I'm gonna bind it to ng model. We have journal and journal on content. Okay, let me just quickly style this. I don't want lines for this. And also we're gonna give it a weight, so I'm gonna say text content. Let me just quickly copy from what we have here and go here, just paste it, save as well, and let's see if it will display the correct stuff the way we want it. Okay, as you see, we have our title, we have what it has here. So if I close it and open this one, it will have the relevant information in there, which means everything works well. Now I'm not happy with this. I don't know what's happening. Let me just add some few lines for this one. Let me call, I don't know why it does not do, let's say minimum height. Did I call the correct one, content, or I didn't call the correct class, content. Okay. I'll also just add some padding. This is one. Padding to maybe 20 pixels. And also font size 1.2 EM. Font weight to like 300. Save this, save that. Let's see. And there you have it. We have the title, the text there. The next part is, let me just also style the title. It looks a little bit there small. Let me give it some font weight of bold. Color of black. But it's already black. Okay, font size. Let's give it a little bit more inches than the other side. And let's run it and see. Okay, for some reasons, I don't know. There's something I'm doing wrong. My styles are not communicating. Journal page, .html, class, title. I think I missed something. Okay, it is this part here. Text area, not text area from, the text area is from like HTML. So I'm gonna say Ion text area, same thing here, Ion text area. Now let's see, and there we go, we have our stuff here. So now this is editable, but we cannot update it. If we close it, you open, it goes back to the original. Now this is the next part that we're gonna do. We're gonna do the update part. Let's get started. Okay, for update, first thing I want to do, go back to our savers and have the update function. Say call update, it's gonna call it update journal, which will take the journal, which will actually have a parameter that is being passed of a journal. So for update, same thing, we need a reference for our journals. I'm gonna call doc for this one, and we're gonna say this.firestore, this bracket, this things, and we say journals slash $, curly braces, this journal that is being passed, but the ID. I click enter now, say return update doc from Angular Fire. So if it's added the update doc here for me. Okay, so let's see what update doc requires. So it returns a promise and it requires a reference of a document. So that is our general reference, and also now we need to put in data of the things that we are the new journal entry. So I'm gonna say curly braces. So we have title. So for title, I'm gonna say journal.title, and we also want to update. So basically, we're updating two things. We're updating the content and the title, because you cannot update the date, but you can update the date as well. But for now, we're just gonna say update title and the content. And yeah, that's two things I'm gonna update. So you can put only things that you want to update. If you want to update like one thing, it could be just one thing that you want to update. But now we're updating the journal, which is the content and the title, because we're not gonna update the user ID, right? And also here on the journal HTML, we need to call that when the user have clicked on the update, when I do an update button just now. But before that, we are going to create an update journal method that will be called in our button. So here I'm gonna say this .service .updates that we just created. It requires a journal, so it is the journal that we have in this page. Yeah, and then I'm gonna have a toast here for when everything went well. I'm gonna say private toast control from the toast control controller. So I'm going to create a toast here. I'll wait this dot toast control dot create. Duration. Okay, so toast present. Now that when it's updated, I need to close this host that we have that populates, that just pops up here. So to do that, I'm gonna create another model, a controller on top. Model controller. I say this dot model controller. Oh, man. Dismiss. Dismissing it. Now we're gonna go to our HTML and create our button for the update. So I'm gonna go create a div on top here. So if you look at this, we have this toolbar thing here called journal. Let me remove the header here. And inside here, I'm gonna have two buttons, which will have two icons for delete and the update. Let me do iron button. Let me see if I could do it quickly from copying some icon, toolbar, button. Okay, from here I'll just copy this, guys. Yeah, we want one with an icon. Yes, this one. Copy. This will be much more quicker than typing myself. Okay, for this one we're gonna have an icon called remove. No, this one will be save and this one will be remove. Icon only. Let's click. How many icons are here? Those are 3. Okay, I'm just gonna remove this one and have 2. So we have button icon 1, button icon 2. Let me save and see if also save this part, if it will show the actual icons. Otherwise, yeah, so we have the save and the remove. Otherwise, you can also get the icons here. Icons. There. Let me say remove and can pick any here. Let me say, okay, if I want to use this one for my remove, I'm gonna call this trash. And the save one, let me see how it looks like. Okay, fine, save. Let me see if we can have another one. Okay, so you can, if you want it outline, you can say outline. Otherwise, if you want it solid, you can leave like how it is there. Let me put on some color for my icon. For this color, I am going to say use a secondary color. For this one, color, because it's remove, I'm gonna make sure that it's red so that it just gives the user the caution. Okay, so instead of secondary and the slot secondary and primary, I will use say start, and this one, no, here, not start, here I'm gonna remove this. Oh, I see. Let me cancel this one and have another iron buttons. We have an iron button that will be at the end. Buttons. Paste it back. This one should be at the this side and this one should be on this side, otherwise you can have them, actually let's have them like that. No, but what if a user presses the wrong one? Let's have them separate. Okay, so this one will be right at the end. Let me save and see how it look like. Also you can have the size. We have size of large, size, okay, so we have that's true on the other side. So here we have one for, let's say they've saved. Now what should happen, we're gonna have click and we're gonna call update journal. Let's save. So if you go in, let me just close this. So if you go here, update journal, if the person clicks on save after they've typed something and say update, it will take anything that a user have modified in the journal, and the journal is what the person types here, because we're using the binding. So whatever the changes the user do in this input and they press update, it will take it and populate it here, and then this guy here calls this journal service and put the journal new entry. Okay, I'm gonna do also one for remove. Let me just do one for remove journal method. Let me call it delete journal. Okay, cancel. And I'll save this. We will have to make a method that will just make sure it removes the journal. So here I'm gonna call it remove journal. Now we have to be specific which journal we want to remove, so we're gonna pass an ID. I probably know by now. Let me just copy this and paste it here, the same entry of this journal. So instead of say journal.id, because I'm passing only an ID, I'm gonna remove that. Now for the remove, we're going to call delete doc. Okay, let's see if it has imported this as the delete doc. So what does a delete doc needs? It just needs it removes it removes an entry of a document underneath the specified collection. So it needs a reference, and that's all it needs, just a reference. I'm gonna save it here. I'm gonna call it back here in our journal page. So this dot journal service dot, we will call it remove, and it expects an ID. Now where do we get an ID? We are going to get an ID from this dot ID, the one that we passed from the other page. So we have that ID, so we're gonna say this dot ID and save. Now back to our HTML, we're gonna call it inside our button click is equals to delete journal. Now let's see if this works. Okay, I'm gonna click on this, and if I add new stuff here, say new stuff, and I press save, see this entry has the new stuff, and you've seen here this it changed to new stuff underneath the content there, which means it works. Let's say you want to remove this one. Let's see if it works. So from 4 to 3 it has removed there, and you go back here and it's gone. So simple as that, everything is gone. And also now, so you see, if I like modify stuff here and I click save, it it dismisses, but when I remove, it does not dismiss the model. So we still have to say, after everything is done here, please remove, not removement, dismiss this. Okay, let me say await here, and our delete can be an async like that as well. So that's pretty much it. But to do some refinement, you can add a date here on your uncut subtitle, and I'm just gonna say like a random time, but then you can use journal.created created at. However, if you check this part here, the date comes in nanosecond and second, so you need to convert that and format it to a proper date. I'm gonna style this to a color of secondary color, so just give a different look. And here, instead of saying welcome, I'm gonna say add journal for my ad view. Right. Yeah, so it says add journal. You can add your journals here. And another thing is, when you add a long text like this, for example, let me just copy something randomly here, and let's say you have a long text like that, and you say maybe this is React Note, and confirm. It will have a long text thing there, and when you add another one, your views won't be very nice, because it will take a long text and your card will be this long. If I could add another one, and let me give it a new title, let's say part 2 of this, and confirm it, and then now our view does not look nice. So you would need to style this card so it could take certain number of lines. And to do that, I'm gonna go to the CSS where I have, and then I'm gonna have content style, and for my content style, let me change my font weight to a 300, and then I'm gonna change the height of the card to match like the same card height, and then I'm gonna say display, and for display I'm gonna use the WebKit box, and here I'm gonna say overflow to a hidden, and I'm gonna save this. I forgot to call my class inside my card, this one, so I'm gonna call class to content, save. Now my cards are on a nice format here, so it's just gonna take like 4 lines max, even if, and the height will stay the same, even if like my text, then maybe the journal has like few lines. Let's say, let me copy these lines here and say Angular notes and save. Okay, this one is because it takes like 2 lines of the title, hence it becomes longer than that. Otherwise, you can also style this note here to say over the same overflow hidden, and give it a certain height, so that the note title will just go into few lines, just 1 line instead of going on the overline. However, you can set a bigger part of, yeah. So if I say title, let me style my title here and say display box size, and have it here, and the size of the text could be 20 pixels. And I'm gonna call it here on my title and say style class rather title, and save this. So you see it just don't go over to the other one, into the other part of the note. However, you can still style your card to show maybe a little bit more text here, title, or anything you might like, just fits your styling.